Yes, hello, folks. Welcome along once again, it is the Left Wing Back Show live. We have the football and hurling shows both together again tonight, and they're both in association with Solar Signs and Bindingstown, number one for your signage, garment printing, and embroidery. You can visit solarsigns.ie for more information, and they are, of course, on Facebook and on Twitter as well. We're on Facebook and Twitter and on YouTube. If you have any comments, you can send them in underneath the post. Occasionally, we do have problems trying to see them with YouTube and Twitter. But if you're looking on Facebook, type in underneath and we'll try to get to those over the duration of the program. So, busy lineup. We're starting with football first, and later on, obviously, turn our attention to hurling. There's plenty to talk about. Unfortunately, a little bit off the pitch as well as on the pitch. So, we'll delve into that. We'll be chatting to Nicholas Redmond on the hurling show. Very interesting story. Just became in love with hurling over in Canada. He's now in Ireland. He's on the Fitzgibbon panel for IT Carlow. And we'll be getting his story to see how he became involved and see, where he's hoping to go with the game and all that. So very much looking forward to that. James Hickey will be joining us as well on the hurling show, as will Joe Nolan. But we're going to kick things off with football, as we said. And I'm joined by my trusty sidekick for many years now, Mr. Stephen Bambrick. How are you keeping, Stevie?
Okay.
I hear they're rolling out the national broadband plan in Bannagagole, and fibre is on the way shortly.
That's the rumour. We had to pull away the phone cable anyway. That'll be a good start.
Yeah, and not to worry about moving rooms too much. Be in a stable environment, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, instead of being in the stable in Hurling.
Some would say it's not too often you're stable anyway, but that's a different story. We're also joined tonight and delighted to be joined by Pamela Hayden. How are you doing, Pamela?
Hi, lads. How's it going?
Great to have you on the Left Wing Back.
Thanks for having me.
For a long time, we've wanted to delve into refereeing, and I suppose no better person than yourself to talk about it, and especially when you're refereeing lads as well, which is obviously, has its difficulties and challenges, I'm sure. So, we will delve into that. But before we do so, I suppose, have to kind of start with the county footballers.
I just want to highlight, though, that fibre broadband has made its way to the Hill of O'Loughlin. It may not have made its way out past the quarry, but made it up here, so we're all right.
Okay, you reckon this lad's spin this yarn then, maybe?
Maybe.
Wouldn't be the first one. You want to write a reply there, Stevie, before we get cracking? No.
I have the right to no comment now. I think we'll leave it at that.
A wise man once said nothing. So yeah, obviously I was up in Markovich Park yesterday, and look, it wasn't pretty. I think, being realistic going in, and we would have, I suppose, mentioned it last week on the show. I don't think anyone was expecting to win. Let's be straight, and I'm not too sure if there will be many wins in the league anyway. But if you had those realistic expectations, you're hoping for maybe to be competitive. I felt maybe Sligo would win by maybe 6, 7, or 8 points, and that would be going well from a Carlow point of view. So from what I saw, like with the, I suppose it's unfair to say limitations, but with the inexperience on show, and given that they need time, and we spoke about patience previously, you'd always be looking for positives naturally, but are the side kind of maxing out on what they're capable of, even if they are a percentage or two, or maybe a bit more, off the standard of where we're hoping they will get to. So yesterday, I think from my point of view, I'm not quite sure they were. Sligo were very good, and without being overly critical on the lads, I think they are capable of much better, even if they are inexperienced. And it was a disappointing spin home. Obviously, nobody more disappointed than the players themselves and all the people that are putting the effort into it. And the greater context is the lads that weren't there. Jamie Clark suspended. We knew that was going to happen. Darragh Foley being suspended was something that I didn't really expect to happen or even knew about. I don't think we knew about it until maybe the middle or tail end of last week. So I'm led to believe, something obviously was said, and Darragh was suspended, reprimanded afterwards. And when you take those two guys out, what hope have you? That's just such a... They're two massive players that we simply cannot be without and we cannot replace. So that's just two off the top of the head. Now, the full list is there somewhere. Shawnee and Mikey Bamrick can't be without them. Josh Moore was out. And then, of course, Sean Gannon, as we know, is a long-term injury. Ross Dunphy. There's one more I'm forgetting. Can't think off the top of my head. Owen Root, again, like such an experienced player. And we were always going to be under pressure in that game, being brutally honest about it. And the thing that kind of stood out for me, the other thing that stood out was the the difference, I suppose, in physicality. And again, we remarked on it last week. The lads have a lot of work to do. Like Sligo just looks so well conditioned, and you could tell they had a few years of that under their belt. And for a lot of the game, it seemed like men against boys. So that gap is something that will have to be bridged. The pace of the game, understanding of it, that that level is just a little bit higher. But I suppose to give a bit of context on who I was impressed with then on an individual basis, which obviously we don't always like singling out individuals, but on a day like that when the performance isn't wonderful, I think it's only fair and right to maybe pick out a few lads who we felt did pretty good. So I thought Dara Curran was really good. Dara Curran is only maybe 18 or 19, and he was marking Niall Murphy, an established senior county footballer who scored 13 points recently against Roscommon in a league game. I thought he did fairly well, and it wasn't until maybe the last 5, 6, 7 minutes that Niall Murphy kicked a few points from play. The game is done and dusted at that point, so you kind of make some allowances for that. Morta Ware I thought was really good in the middle of the field. And I think it was his birthday yesterday too, so I wish him a happy birthday while we're at it. But he got a good few kickouts actually cleanly, and it looked much improved, I suppose, in comparison to the performance against London, which I think he'd be honest enough to admit maybe wasn't at his best, but it was also his first league game for Carlow. Probably, I think he played maybe 5-6 years ago. He was definitely in around the panel, played up World Cup games, but would be kind of. That would seem like a lifetime ago in terms of where the game is now. So I thought he did quite well. Dara O'Brien steady enough at wing back. Colm Hulton, obviously, the only one that scored in the game, which is mad to think. He looked like a threat. So those were some positives from where I saw it. But look, Pam, I suppose I'll come to you first. Like, where do you see Carlow football, I suppose, at the moment? What's your thoughts on the context of what's going on? Do we need to be more patient still? And should we expect more, even though the lads are very inexperienced?
I think, unfortunately we got off the worst start possible, right? Great first half against London, and then lost that game. And I questioned is the confidence of the team just really low after that, and have they found it hard to take that beating and come back then and get themselves in the right headspace for today, along with having all those injuries and missing players? I think that definitely has to play a part. Like, and yourselves, it's when you're a confident team going in, it's half the battle nearly. But I think the London game has really shook the confidence of the group, and I think they're unfortunately now as well. Like, that's definitely been nailed home yesterday with the game against Sligo. So you just, it's going to be hard for them to pick themselves back up for sure. Especially even with the commentary outside of the squad, let alone how they're feeling in there. Playing for Carlow is a huge honour. It's also really tough. It's not easy, and you give it your all and you train very hard, and you don't go out to lose by 23 points. You surely don't. It's very hard to turn it around when you started the year the way they did against London. I think if they had won that game, I think you would have seen a different team yesterday from a confidence perspective even, and they would have had something to build on. But not having had that good start now, it's very hard to turn the league around. And as you know, in Division 4, you really do need to be winning your games to try and get out. And until we get out of Division 4, really, even getting to a Division 4 final would be a huge achievement for us, in the coming years. But definitely that start of the season to the league has been very tough. And I think they're going to find it hard to turn it around now. And now, of course, as you say, there's so many players to come back in, and you're saying Morta Ware, a good game. If Dara Foley come back into midfield with him, you're going to solidify that there as well. Some good younger players as well, but they really need the experienced heads around them to be able to bring them on. Otherwise they're going to hide into nothing really, right? They need the likes of Sean Gannon and Owen Ruth and Dara Foley, as we said. They need Jordan Marr. They need all those players on the pitch around them so they can grow and develop and learn from them, and how to manage the game when it's pulling away from you. How to minimize the scores. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. The rest of the league campaign is going to be tough. Hopefully they can turn it around, but I think they will need a lot of those players back on the pitch. for them to be able to do that. We just, as you said, experience is really, there's a big gap there, and it's a big step up into senior county. It's a big step up, and it's been a tough start. So it's not going to be easy. I think Niall Crew has a lot to do. I actually trained under Niall for 2 years when I was in college. It's a long time ago. It's not today or yesterday. But he's a good guy. He's a good man. He will be giving it all, and he really does want to do a good job. He's passionate about football, and he's passionate about Carlow football as well. So, you'd hope that he can give them a little bit more confidence in themselves. Unless they build that, I think it's going to be very tough.
Mm-hmm. So I think another one I should have maybe included in the positives. Keegan Bradley was very good on the ball actually as well. I need to give him some credit. And again, similar enough to the London game, he found himself kind of out the field a lot more. Wasn't exactly pinned on the edge of the square. A lot of the time he broke lines and looked, as I said, very comfortable on the ball. But Stevie, to put a bit of I don't know, does it put perspective on it, right? But does it take the sting out with London if he's slightly? The fact that London went on and bet Waterford yesterday. That seemed a funny kind of a game where they made a very good start, London did, and then Waterford got on top. But in the end, London actually edged it out. So they've now got 2 wins from 2, which is remarkable, really. And you need to give London credit because they had no game for 2 years or whatever. So, does that put any kind of perspective into our own situation?
It doesn't. I think if any other player had been sent off other than Jamie Clark against London, we'd have still won the game by 6 points. I just think, I don't know, the way Jamie was playing that night, a lot of scores have come through him. Which had been a man down, he was allowed to break the line 45, 50 metres out there, draw free. That's not answering your question, but I'm going back. The likes of Sean Gannon, someone like this, Horst Law or Choo, these lads, they break the game line, the draw free, the momentum to give to a team. I know you can't be depending on 1, 2 or 3 players in particular, but the London result, it seemed when Jamie went off, you were one man down, but you're also, and he's relatively inexperienced, even though he's in there 4 or 5 years. Last year was the first year he got off. I wouldn't say fair crack at him, but earned his place in the team and showed every game he went out better the next day than he was the previous day. And I think that like Waterford and London, Carlow, at the start of the season, be looking, there are 3 games. The other two teams will be looking at are 2 games, potential 4 points. If you win them, you're halfway to, looking at your 10, 12 points nearly to get into the top 2. Waterford, we played Waterford down in Waterford the year we got promoted, and we had the game nearly put to bed with 10 minutes to go and we went back into it. That's, Waterford are always very tricky in Division 4. London, they probably on the high after last week had said, they just, they haven't played a game in 2 years. They played down a couple of weeks ago, lads were saying, and played very well in it. I think it was up and down. That, the momentum they have got now, they're 4 points and they're in bonus territory already. But back to try to put yesterday's game into reality, we lost 2 points. I know Gavin said after the match that it might as well, it could be maybe a point, is still 2 points gone, but it's just the next game against Waterford, I think, is Saturday week. Hopefully, if you have 1, 2, 3, you should have the 2 boys back in the forwards, Darren and Jamie. Sean Gannon, maybe Ross Dunphy, I don't know how they're fixed their own route. Their loss alone, Gannon in particular, it's just an astronomical loss. And if he never kicks another football for Carlow, which I hope he does kick football plenty for another year or 2 if he can, but when these players are gone, you miss him. And we had a big physical team over the last 3 or 4 years, built up from, they had the team that got to the minor. Leinster, there was, I can't remember, there was 3 or 4 probably off that. Brendan Murphy, Shane Redmond, maybe a couple more. It takes so long in Carlow to build a team. Then you look back then, like Alex Ferguson used to always do with Man United when he was on top. He'd bring in a player or 2 every year and freshen it up. That's in Carlow. With the lads come in, the likes of the Fenna lads there, you have Jamie McCabe, Keegan Bradley, Cormac and Pádraig Hines. these lads are all playing central positions in their first couple of games for county team, a senior county team, and it's a big step up. Whereas if they'd been in last year, 2 years ago, whether they were or not, they might have been in. They're playing number 5, number 7, 12, 15. They're getting a bit more of an opportunity to get up to the speed of the game, and then a couple of years time, because different players playing different positions on the county teams. You see like them in corner forward, somebody ends up maybe centre back the following year, 3 or 4 years down the line. It's unfortunate the way it's happened. There've been so many lads withdrawn for retirements, injuries, etc. But the Waterford game the next day is definitely, it's just, we're probably as low as we can get at the moment, and there's only one way, and that's up.
Yeah, probably the fairest way of putting it. So like we have a text in here now, and they'd rather stay anonymous, so that's fair enough. But I will call out the question. Does the problem lie with the clubs or the county? Question mark. Is it the quality of underage coaching at clubs? Is it S&C? The quality of club football is poor. County season goes from November, December to May or June in Carlo's case, and for the other 6 months, is there contact from management on progression, how life in general is going, S&C testing, and all other counties seem to have year-round S&C programs and do it during club season as well. Thoughts?
I would say that every senior club in Carlow have an S&C program. I can't imagine they don't. So again, I don't know if I'd fully agree to say that the club scene in Carlow is poor. I don't know if I'd agree with that. I think we've had some great games in the club championship, and Air Rogan Rathvilly, excellent, very strong, some great players there. But I think it's, I don't know, have we had the perfect storm for this league? As you say, with so many withdrawals, we have to have the suspensions, we've had the injuries, and we've all the new players coming in. I don't know, with that in the, if you're putting all that, the recipe into a cake, like you're not going to get the cake you want, right? All the ingredients in, like it's very tough. We don't have the depth, I think, would be the one thing that we could probably, highlight as a county or a small county, right? We only have a small number of clubs. It's the depth of the squad, I think, is what really, when we're in situations like this, that really comes back to bite us. So, maybe to the point of the developing the younger players and those development squads, that work has been ongoing in Carlow. They are putting effort into that, into the Colts and the Folds, those teams. And we're probably, seeing reaping some rewards of that. But, when we're missing people, like, you mentioned Sean Gannon there earlier, like that playmaking ability that he has, and he's so creative at holding up the ball and giving a great pass, and he's got a real skill. Like he's honed that over years and playing with great players. And it's trying to bring on the treadmill of the next generation. But I think the club teams, I think they're boxing, they're able to. We've got some great clubs, and we've got some great players. It's getting them all into the county and keeping them fit and healthy to play, while bringing on the next generation. For me, anyway, I think that's kind of areas that we could work on. But I think the S&C is there, Yeah.
They're probably looking at a lot of lads have come in. Like they're playing at intermediate level at the moment, or junior, and like it's a big step up. Yeah. And the only place you learn is between the white lines of the pitch. That's where you're going to learn. Unfortunately, yesterday was a steep learning curve for a lot of them, and just have to suck it up and get on with it. And that's just the reality of Carlow went up and played Meath in Crow Park in 1996. Got a similar beat, and I know Meath were a team that came out of the blue and won All Ireland in '96. You might say that's different. Sligo's a different, it's Division 4, but you have to learn and learn fast. And I'd say it's the minors that got to the Leinster final. We haven't won a minor game until last year against Wicklow. I think it's a good few years before we won a first round even in Leinster. The questions that whoever asked the question, they're valid questions, and there's probably no right and wrong answer. There is better things we could be doing, definitely, from all things. And the thing with Carlow is you need everyone pulling their weight. You have lads the good lad in Carlow, he could be good at hurling, football, soccer. He's going to end up at one of the three of them if he's, that lad at 15, 16 years of age. And like you see in Port Leash, that Paul Cahalane went off to Celtic there for a couple of years underage, I think, came back. And you hear these lads come back, you know, to go off and play other sports and come back. And Carlo, we need everyone, you know, we can't be missing anyone, you know, within reason. And you're hoping yesterday, as Pam says, it was a perfect storm with just everything, just, you know, between the whole thing, that the next day has to be, you know, the 4 points are gone now. Promotion has gone realistically, I'd say. You know, we have to win all the games, like, and the toughest games are yet to come. Leitrim, to beat Tippy 8 points, you know, Andy Moore will get a good bounce over them. Cavan are unbeaten. To be a kick and Tip after winning Munster a couple of years ago. Wexford, you know, that the Wexford Waterford games are probably two we should be hopefully.
But even at that, Waterford are well coached, actually.
And more, yeah. Leafy Fitzgerald with them, like, so. As I said, we make life hard on ourselves even when we're going well against the likes of Waterford. So, you know, there's not going to be any change there. Home advantage, we hope, might make some difference. So, look, Saturday week, it's a vital game, and we hope to get a couple of lads back and they'll have learned from yesterday.
100%. So let's move on to refereeing then, Pam. And yeah, as you said, look, it's something we wanted to explore for quite some time. And, you know, and then add in the whole thing of being involved with the men's game as an official. So where did this mad idea come from initially? And I suppose, how long have you been doing it?
Yeah, it was a mad idea. It definitely was. A couple of years ago, I don't know if you've seen it. It was a documentary RTE made about Fergal Horgan getting ready for the All-Ireland final. I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, in the post van and everything. Yeah,
it was really good. It went through like his preparation and all that. And I thought, and I was like, Jesus, I'd love to do that. That sounds brilliant. Like, because I stopped playing at that stage. I stopped playing when I was 27, way too young. But, you know,
I didn't realize you were that young finishing up, because you'd played county football for a long, long time. Like,
yeah, I played the senior football team 15. It was cornerback when I was 15, and we won the Leinster title against Dublin. Yeah, 95. That's when I started playing. So tired at 27. But the ladies' game is younger, but was very young back then.
Yeah.
But I learned from some great players like, you know, Kathleen Brennan and Geraldine Marr and Mary McGrath, Dory McGrath. They were all playing when I started, and they looked after you. They killed you in training, but they look after you then when you're on the pitch. But like, that's how you learn. That's how you get tough, right? By playing with people like that, and that's how you're brought on. But yeah. So when I saw that documentary, I was saying it to my husband John, and he's like, "No, you're mental. Why would you even consider doing something like that?" Like, and said it then to my friend Martina McGrath as well, and she's the same. And she's like, "No, you're bananas." And I saw that a couple of months later at the men's county board put out a call for people to do the course, and I said, "Oh, here, look at it, rock in anyway." And I'd see it. Sure, I rocked in, and Marion Hayden was there. We're only two women in the room, obviously, and sure, I played football with Marion, and I didn't know she was going to be there. Sure. Then when we were both doing it, we said, "Oh, here, we'll stay going." And Sean Clear actually did the course. The Kilkenny hurling referee, he gave the course. It was over like a 6-week period, and it was just excellent. I absolutely loved it. Like, even the video analysis, just the complexity of the rules themselves. Like, and I just learned so much about the game, you know, that you don't learn when you're a player. You just don't. And I really enjoyed it. So that was great crack until we actually had to go and do it. Then it was just, we did a few, like, around the line for a few games, and we did a bit of that. And then the county board asked me would I do a junior match out in Cal. It was for my first men's game, and it was a junior C match. And fairness, I'd say the lads had been warned, like, you better be, you know, you better go easy on the first match. And it was brilliant. I just, from that game, then I was completely hooked. Like, I won't say, like, even to this day, I would be nervous going to matches. I'm never not. Sometimes that's a good thing, because it means you're tuned in, and, you know, you're ready and you're prepared. But yeah, it's not an easy job. It's really not an easy job. The men's side, I've refereed a good few games for the men. They do go a bit here in O'Loughlin, especially for their practice matches, because my husband's the chairman, so he doesn't want to pay referees. He's just he has to pay for the babysitter usually. So So
former county footballer as well, just to put it out. Yeah, well-known county footballer. Yeah.
But so yeah, I do a good few games here, and then obviously I do a lot of the line for the championship for both junior, intermediate, and senior, which is great, because, and I actually, that's my favorite part of refereeing, is doing the line for really experienced referees. You learn so much every game. You know, the likes Johnny Murphy, any of the lads, they're just all so good. You know, and Carlo, the standard is very high. You may not agree with me, and maybe people listening won't agree with me, but the standard is actually really high in Carlo. You know, we have some great referees, and it's a pleasure to learn from them, and even their communication as well, their communication style, all of that. So I do love running the line. It's one of the things I enjoy most about refereeing. It's a challenge as well on the men's side. Refereeing is very different between men's and ladies. It's very different. The rules are very different. They're a completely different game. And it can be difficult to do both because some of the rules on the ladies' side are different to the rules on the men's side, as in the infraction or, you know, the card or the foul is different. So it's much more complex on the men's side in one way, in that there's a lot more rules and they are getting harder as time goes on. I think, you know, the advanced mark is awful. You know, I have a book of notes and I think I have like 2 pages on the advanced mark alone. So it's really difficult. It is really hard to keep a track of what's going on the pitch. And I find on the men's side compared to the ladies' side, there's a lot of calling for frees. So the guys will step. You'd just be withered, like listening to it. You really would, because it stops you making a good decision because there's so much noise, you know, shouting at you. So actually, if you stopped calling that, the referee will probably make a better decision because they have more thinking time and thinking space. The ladies don't do that as much. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, in general, then, would you say, do you get less abuse, or do you get any abuse at all when you're involved in men's games? Does it help that you're female in that regard?
It works for you and against you, I think. When you're doing a good job, you're the best in the world. If you get it wrong, it's because you're a woman. So not because you're human, you know. I suppose I did a game a couple of years ago out in Fenna, and it wasn't great. You know, I suppose, you know, it was only starting off, probably let the game get away. I mean, you kind of know as well, and you've let, you know, when that happens, it's very difficult to pull it back. It's just like when you're playing. And I got a lot of commentary afterwards because I was a woman, but it wasn't. It was just because I had a bad day. And I was, you know, I was human.
And direct straight at you as well. No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and look, you know, you don't go out. You can't cross that line with a whistle in your hand if you're not able to take it. You just might as well stay at home. You know, it's not easy, but you might as well stay at home I think as you develop through the years, you develop a thicker skin, and you actually stop hearing people on the line. So regardless of what they shout at you, you kind of don't hear it. Although some of the worst games I have been for under 12 girls, but that's not the players, it's the line. Yeah. And they are some of the worst games. They're the games you have to really be careful about because there's kids there as well. So, but yeah, so on the men's side, the positives, I suppose, especially when you're doing the line, is that you can very much calm. I think you can be, you know, I don't know if some of the managers lose the head as much when you're there. I think they behave themselves a bit more, and sometimes I think I'm strategically placed because of that, because that's, you know, that influence is there. So yeah, it can work both ways. Like you can just positive and negatives for that.
How long did it take to develop a thicker skin, I suppose? Because if I'm there doing that job, and I suppose even naturally as a player, I would spend a lot of time, you know, when I was able to play a little bit as you, going home in the car thinking about it, and even maybe later on when I'm lying down, finding it hard to sleep because I'm thinking about everything I did in the game, be it good or bad. And even if you do the 9 things good, you're still thinking about the one thing you do bad, and that kind of has a tendency to overpower all the other things that you did good. So is it like that from a referee's point of view as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think majority of referees and all the referees I know would do self-reflection after every game. And you know, you're writing down what went well, what didn't go well. You're trying to learn from it the next time. Every referee I know does that. Most games, I usually give Marion a call on the way home, or vice versa, and we talk about what happened, or was that the right call, or was that not the right call. A lot of it comes down to knowing your rules as well. That's where the confidence comes from. If you know your rules and you know the call was right, then you kind of forget about it regardless of how people take the call. You know, if you know that, yeah, that was the right call. I saw the infraction. I associated the rule and I gave the free. So if you can be confident in that, it helps. It's the ones that you're not sure of, they're the ones that you keep going over and over again on the loop on. But then, as I said, the self-reflection, pull out the rule book and and work out, was that the right call or not? And then more often than not, you'll remember that for the next time. So that does help, that self-reflection piece, definitely. And then having someone you can talk to about it afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I think in general, like, it's not a job that people are mad to go and do. You know what I mean? So I'd imagine, like, where does the actual enjoyment come from then? Like, because it's a lot of people, I suppose, would have a perception with maybe some referees, not all of them, by no means all of them, a very small majority kind of like the whole centre of attention thing, and it can get in on them, right? I'm almost certain, like, without a shadow of a doubt, that's not Pam. But what is the actual biggest enjoyment in being a referee? Where does it actually come from? Like, is it just seeing a good game develop in front of you, or what is it?
Yeah. Oh, it's a great question. I sometimes when I'm on the pitch, like, I'd say to myself, I love this. Like, honestly, I just love it. It's a fantastic way to be on the pitch, number one. So you're on the pitch in the middle of a game, when there's fantastic football being played. And I think for me, when you can impact positively on it, so you're treating the players with respect, you know your rules, you do a good job, and you make the game better for them. And when you do that, it's a great feeling to know that you've done that coming off and you've done your best. And I think that's really relevant on the ladies' side, because, I suppose when I played, most referees were, the only female I knew was Geraldine Marr, and never saw a female referee ever on the pitch. Always male referees coming over. To be honest with you, like, except with the county, like, you were hard done by. Like, they barely walk between the 245s. Like, so for me, I kind of wanted to, why I got involved is just to improve it. And the LGFA, I think I was saying to you before, are excellent with developing referees. They're just excellent at bringing people in and that whole player development thing, and they keep going. But it's just brilliant to be involved in the game when you can do it right and do it well. It is. It is.
So I think from the outside in, communication is the single biggest thing, and just talking to a player on a human level. I think referees have got better at that. I felt occasionally there was a school kind of headmaster approach, and it's not the right approach. But if you can just talk to someone, and do you know what? I've seen Salt do it before, right? Salt put up his hand and said, "I made a mistake," and you could see it was quite obvious. There was a game on the telly. I can't remember which one it was. He apologized for not giving the advantage. He knew he should have given an advantage, and it was a goal scoring opportunity. And I think there's so much respect to be got out of that. You know what I mean? Rather than just kind of be thinking, "Oh, damn, I've effed up that one," and you know what I mean. So, is that something you kind of go along with?
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's not a game you won't do that you won't make a mistake in. It's just not possible. Like, there's so much to see and there's so much to catch. I think if you can do 80% of it really well, or even 85 on some days, that's a good job. There's a lot going on. But yeah, I mean, communication, absolutely. Like, I think you get back what you give out as well, so if you can be calm and collected when you're making the call, you're using the language of the rules, that really helps. So the player knows that you know what you're talking about. Frustration comes when you're not consistent as well. So trying to be consistent with how you apply the rule. And then apologizing if you don't see something, that can happen quite a bit. And I was doing the minor C fine there the other night, and I was just not running a great line. I just didn't see the foul out on the line, and the player said to me afterwards, "Did you not see that, ref?" I said, "Actually, I'm really sorry, I didn't see it. I was in the wrong position. I'll make sure I get into a better position the next time." And that's all you can do. You can just say, "I didn't see it," or "What was that for?" And you're explaining then why you made the call. And when I start a game, I always say that to the captain. If you're not sure why I've given a free, just ask me. It's my job to tell you why I've given a free if I'm not clear, So, but you do definitely get back what you put out. So being cool and calm as much as possible. What they say was it, walk slowly, think quickly. That's what you should do as a referee. I think that's one of the unwritten rules, or maybe it's written somewhere, but so just be calm and cool and fit as well. Being fit is important, so you're getting into the right position and you're keeping up with the play, because they know if you're not with the play, if you can't. And that's actually a big difference between the ladies and the men's. The ball moves so fast in the men's. You could do up to 10K a game, like if you were, so you really need to be, you need to be fit. It's tough going.
Do you have empathy for referees? And look, I'm not quite sure, can I include the women's game in this, because I don't know what the assessor process is, right? But I'd have a fair idea of what it is and how stringent it is in the men's game, right?
Yes.
And it's a question I maybe brought up on air on Casey Lord duty yesterday. We were doing the gig there. Like, when you start off and 10 years down the road, are you refereeing that game a little bit different? Because obviously your first few games, there's someone there taking note, and I would struggle to see how you could always apply common sense in respect of certain decisions, or, you hear the term, let the game go, or let the game flow, right? So if you were to apply every rule in the book, the game wouldn't flow at all. Let's be honest about it. That's the way it is. So do you think people, do you have an empathy maybe, or some bit of, I suppose, understanding as to why people referee games differently in the early part of the career later on? Do you think that actually happens in the first place? And do you feel a bit more liberty, I suppose, as you progress year in, year out, in terms of maybe what you can or can't do, or let a game flow? Because, look, John won't want me saying this, right? I know John Hickey quite well. The way he refereed the county hurling final last year was completely different to maybe how he refereed games 10 years previous. Like, the whistle was hardly blown, and the game, it was great, right? He was consistent with it. I'm going to let this go as much as possible. And we saw one of the greatest scores of all time because he refereed it that way. John Nolan went down, it was blatantly fouled, and put a point over off his knees. If that whistle was blown, we never would have saw that, right? I just think in general, that's the law he applied. And it was a similar game. I can't think which one it was. And that's what he went with. But I don't know, would John have rested that way 10 years previous? And if he's listening or looking, let him write in and prove me wrong. But I would just have my suspicions. So I'm going a long-winded way around asking you the question, but what are your thoughts on that? Is that a myth, or is it fact, do you think?
Well, like, John Hickey is one of the best referees in the country, so like, to be honest, like, I'm not going to say anything against John. He's taught me an awful lot. I think confidence, that's where that comes from. So when you're starting off, your worst nightmare is to lose control of the game. So if you're letting the game flow, it's a knife edge there, right? So you need to have the confidence in your ability to be able to keep control of the game while also letting it flow. When you don't have the confidence, you tend to call the freeze because you're A, worried that your player's going to get injured, or B, that you're not doing the game properly. So you go there to try to do it properly, to be fair to both sides, and be consistent. But as you get confident, and as you, I suppose, develop your knowledge and develop your skills, that confidence grows, which allows you to let more go, so you, while still controlling the game. So that's probably what you saw with John. Like, John has so much experience now. He's seen everything. So he knows how a game is going to flow, and he knows that, yes, I can let this go. It is. And the hurling is so different as well. Sometimes, like, I've never played camogie. So when I look at it, there's no rules, I don't think, at all. But yeah, I know for myself, even the game, the minor final I did during the week, like, I definitely started off, a bit nervy, and then grew into the match. And as you over time, that's just what happens as well. You just get better, like you do as a player, right? You get better. If you played for 10 years, you're going to be a better footballer. You're going to be able to read the game better. You're going to know how the play is going to work out. It's the exact same with refereeing, and having confidence in your own ability. I think that helps definitely for you to improve.
But obviously, knowing that maybe you aren't under the microscope as much from an assessor's point of view, that's, I think that makes a difference, because when you're going in and just say you're refereeing a Division 4 National League football game, and God knows, I'll be straight, we've seen some horrendous things happening that you wouldn't see in Division 1. Sometimes I think that's literally because, I don't think it's actually because the referee is the poorest referee of all time. I think maybe he's getting caught up in, he or she is getting caught up in the fact that they have to tick the box early on, or they don't get bigger games. So that's where I was kind of coming from, maybe with that.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if I fully agree with that, because I think the higher up you go with regards to inter-county, I think the more scrutiny is on you. So you think, have to, I do. Like, and the level of fitness that those guys have to get to, it's like 17.3 or something, 17.4. Like, that's inter-county fitness standard. Like, I would never hit it. Even tried to get onto the Leinster panel, but I wouldn't have made, I think it was like 16.2, and I just wouldn't have made the fitness at the quick, but not that quick. But I do think as you move up into provincial or interprovincial and provincial, I actually think it's much harder, as in the demands are higher, the game is quicker, you're less forgiving for making bad decisions. And I know what you mean, like you do see a difference in skill maybe between Division 4 and Division 1, but the guys who are refereeing Division 1, how many years have they been doing that, and how much extra support have they got? So they're doing all the training hubs, they're doing all the extra sessions, they're doing all the extra rules, the extra video analysis. And it's only as you step up into provincial and national that you get that, So I think the higher up you go, the harder it is.
Right. So there's yourself, Marion, Kiva Collins, Leah Mullins.
Yeah.
There's a good few in Carlow, in fairness.
More now. Hopefully we can entice a few more females into it as well.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely something you'd recommend, and
I would.
You're enjoying it overall.
Highly, I would. Yeah. I would. Yeah, I definitely would.
Any last thoughts before we finish up, Pam?
No, nothing other than, I suppose, I feel for poor David Goff today. I think he had a tough day in the office yesterday. I've done loads of courses with David. He's an excellent referee. He really is excellent. And I think he was very brave in giving the red cards. I think it was a brave move. And I think the next time he walks onto the pitch, he won't be faced with that again, because they know that if they start it, they're going to walk. So, and I think he set down a marker yesterday, and I'm glad he did it. I think, not glad he did it, but I'm glad that he had the balls to do it. Like, it's a brave thing to do. Whether you agree with the card or not, I think it's a brave thing to do. So
and the commentary around that is actually interesting, Pam, because I think the guys on League Sunday were saying that there should have been more cards, and then Colin O'Rourke said, I can't think of the exact terms, I don't want to misquote him, but the Meath side, they weren't exactly angels either, were they? There was one or two things that they might have done which was a bit untoward as well. So I think it's sparked a lot of debate, hasn't it?
Yeah, for those, I think perception would have been for those Malays, usually it's like one player from each team gets sent off and that's it.
Yeah.
That's usually, so that's why everyone piles in, because they know I'm not going to get your fella in there before me, so in we go, But I don't think that's going to be the case now. I think that's going to change.
Yeah, and in those situations, like, are you just better off standing a couple of yards away, taking in as much as possible? And
you're not allowed. Actually, that's the direction. You obviously can't touch a player. So as a referee, when that happens, it is your worst nightmare. By the way, absolute worst nightmare, because your number one responsibility is to keep players safe. And like, that's when that's not going to be the case, right? That's a big worry, that you can't keep players safe. But you have to stand back and you can't interfere at all. You can blow the whistle and that is it. And you just have to wait for the players to resolve it. You can't get involved at all. If then you stand back and you assess to see who those people are who are getting involved, and that's all you can do. Nothing else.
Yeah. Listen, come here. It's been a pleasure having a chat with you. You might jump on again at some stage. Nice to get the insight. Barmer didn't scare you off anyway. He scared a few people off in his time here. But anyway, look, it's great to catch up with you, Pam, and thanks for coming on. And Stevie, is there anything you want to say actually before we let you go as well? I kind of took over there for the last 20 minutes and made a spectator out of you.
I'm sure you're the boss. It's got talking about Marion. Old Brendan was refereeing a match one day with Palatine O'Loughlin in Asca, about 85, 86 or that, and the game was going along normal enough, nothing major, and Martin Long was in the goal at the bottom end, and John Curran was doing umpire. Next one, two, whether they were pal subs or supports, what went down and attacked the two boys anyway, and there was a fairly healthy row went on for a couple of minutes, and Brendan Hayden not stayed in the middle of the field. The whole Oak, the fire went out anyway. He'd have not let the game go back on again, and there wasn't a word said. So, but the refereeing end of it, like Pam says, should have given a great analysis of it there, because it's like playing, you learn the hard way, and she says you have to blank out the crowd and all that. It's like playing the goal, because I've heard jokes in the goal, and rightly so, when a scuttery goal will go in or something and take that lad out of the goal or whatever. And you'd know who's after saying it, like, you'd know it's one of your own lads, and you have to just blank it out. And when you're down defending, there's two, you're there against two crowds, so you probably won't be able to think of who it is. But like, the games won't go ahead without referees, and as Pam says, you could get someone just walking between the two 45s. And the thing about it is, if it's that or no one, you have to put up with that. And the clubs are asked every year, and I know like Pam went out of her own accord. It wasn't that O'Loughlin went after her or the ladies went after her. You know, she went of her own. And the thing is, and there's always people asking us from underage levels, is there any way? Well, some mentors will be saying to you to see a bigger picture. Is there any way you can incentivize people to get involved in refereeing? And the young whistlers, I think there was a thing was done there. I don't know whether it's you'd see at some go games, and sometimes that try and get a 13 or 14-year-old maybe to do a go games, and you know, if you could get them into that way, it's like players. How do you develop players? How do you develop referees? You know, without someone playing when you're finished playing, you know, can you get people that mightn't be that much into playing? Refereeing is the job for them, you know, at a younger age maybe. So it's, but the games won't go ahead, and it's every sport's the same, you know. And if you get the abuse, no, look, I'm not saying to a match. That's, you know, you have to think of it. You know, if a mistake is made and you see him work both ways for you, it can be for you or against you. You put your hand up and say I made a mistake, you know. And as you said with Salt there, he put up. I think he said it was Limerick and Tipperary. It was that match in particular there. So you know, it's you need fresh faces. You know, no matter what code it is or whether it's officiating or playing, and like it's great to see, like as you said, Kiva and presume Liam Mullen. She's had a while now as well. You know, so our father Fran, I remember him refereeing a under 14 semi-final. We were in Bagnallstown, and Pat Coughlin was full back, and we caught his father. I think he got the. I don't know whether he got. It was a fairly healthy round with one of the lads full far from the town now, and that time, you know, referees would separate lads a try because it was young lads was under 14, and he pulled them apart, and he had a job pulling them apart. Or he put like Pam says different. Now you can't touch anyone. You know, you have to your P's and Q's, and you know it's great to see plenty of new faces, you know, doing it. So you know, best of luck. And another time I'd send Pam a text of looking at a match or something, and she'd make a random text, and I'd say, "What do you think of that decision?" I'd be looking for was it in the book to do it, like, or after a match, and she'd come back with it. Might be 5 minutes, could be an hour, but she'd be back with an answer.
It depends how far the rules are away.
Inside in the book, like, yeah. So look, that's the story. Thanks a million for jumping on with us, Pam, and Stevie, thanks a million too. So we'll chat to you soon. All right, there we go. That concludes the football show in association with Solar Signs, and now it's time to move on to the hurling show, which is also in association with Solar Signs in Bagnallstown. As you said, number one for your signage, garment printing and embroidery, and you can visit solarsigns.ie. They're also, of course, on Facebook and Instagram. You can check them out there as well. So yeah, plenty to get through on the hurling show, and a lot of talk, I suppose, about things off the field as well as on the field. And in about 10 minutes time, I'm going to be chatting to Nicholas Redmond. Interesting story there. But first I'm going to bring in the regular Joe, Mr. Nolan. How are you getting on?
Great, Kevin. You?
Sure, flying it now, flying it. We've got through a good bit, but we've another good bit to get through. And I'll bring in another guest, James Hickey. How are we doing?
How are you lads? How's it going?
Flying it now. Thanks for jumping on. You made us a promise there last week, and you stuck to it. I'm not surprised with that. You're always a man of your word. But how are you keeping?
Good, yeah. No dramas, all is good. Thanks. How are you?
Flying it.
Good. Lads, I tell you, lads, I think I drew the short straw with the hair, lad, tonight. I have two lads there with lovely quiffed and combed hairstyles. Jesus Christ.
I'm trying to get a budget for a stylist there and makeup and all that, but
you don't need it. You don't need it.
Yeah, I rang Marty Morrissey there today, but he's not forthcoming with much information. Anyway, look, lads, you know, we have a good bit to go through. Some of the stuff is not nice. We don't know. We can't stand over everything that we're hearing, of course, but there's lots of stuff going on in national media today on the back of Carlow and Downs match yesterday in the National Hurling League that was up in Ballycran. So finished down 2-10. Carlow 112, and I suppose to start, it's a result that, you know, you wouldn't be overly surprised with because it happened last year. Venue's not ideal, not to be using as an excuse. We knew that was going to be the case beforehand. It's, in my opinion, well coordinated. I'll put it on record. I think they know what they're at. What's wrong with Nori? It's good enough to host All Ireland semi-finals. So yeah, there's a lot going on, but the long and short of it is Carlow haven't got the result. And James, what do you make of it all?
Yeah, look, they're going to be, I assume, very disappointed with losing yesterday, but at the same time, there's a huge rebuilding process going on there. I think if you go back to the team that won the Joe McDonagh in 2018, 7 of them are still there. I was going through it there the last few days and just having a look at things. Like, if you look at the forward line that started yesterday compared to the forward line that started the McDonagh final, like John Michael, Paul Cody, Edward Byrne, James Doyle and Dennis Murphy. Huge players, been around a long time, Alfie in the backs. Like, you take 8 players out of that, and like, I suppose Colin Bonner got a lot of credit for what he done. They won a Christy Ring, and look, it fell well the way the Joe McDonagh was introduced then, and realistically, for me, the Joe McDonagh was a glorified Christy Ring for certain reasons. They brought it in there, but like, if you look at, say, 2018, the league, we played 5 games, won 4, lost to Westmeath, rectified that in the final. Bet Westmeath went up. Following year, then you play 6 matches, you draw 2 with Laois and Galway. The following year, then you win no game with the same group of players. So Tommy and the backroom team came in there last year. Joe, you were part of it, but like, what you were tasked with, and it's my opinion, like, and I think the hurlers especially are going through a huge rebuild. I know the footballers are too, but the hurlers especially, like, when you take those numbers and look at it from a logistical point of view, and see what Tommy and the management team have done in the KO Cup. They've, like, people have said to me, why did they change the team so much in the KO Cup final, you know, when there was silverware on offer? But they had done that in the quarter final, it didn't matter. The semi-final, it didn't matter. Suddenly the final, like, where are you going to look at these players? And to be fair to Tommy, look, Tommy has his way and the management team have their way, and the way is they're developing players. And the only way you can develop players is to give them game time. And you look at the players that played yesterday, like Fico Fitzpatrick, Scott Tracy, these are young players, Jack McCullough. And like, it's like I said, somebody asked me about Tommy, you know, what's his mantra? Names don't matter to Tommy. What Tommy wants is committed players who will commit to the cause, and he'll work with them and he'll make something out of them. And don't forget, like, down 15 months ago, bet Offaly, like, and in fairness, Offaly were in free fall, right? Kevin Martin was gone, they brought in Mick Fennelly, Michael Duigan has gone in as chairman. They've steadied the ship dramatically, and they're on an upward trajectory. But don't forget, 15 months ago, in Michael Fennelly's first year in charge, like, they were unbackable Christy Ring favourites, and they went down in the semi-final, and the two teams were getting promoted that year, the 2 teams in the Christy Ring final, and Down done a number on them. So, like, I've played them Down. I know what it's like up there. It's a tough place to go. So, while it's disappointing, yeah, but Tommy and the management team, I'm sure, like, they're looking at the bigger picture here. They're looking at Joe Mack, developing players and getting ready for that. That's just my opinion from knowing Tommy and the development that I was with him for 10 years. So, like, I'd be in full agreement with what they're doing. If you look, I think during the KO Cup, they could have used 30 plus players. Like, who does that? And you see, even with Dublin footballers now, everybody says, oh, they're on a downward trajectory. But they've lost huge players out of their dressing room as well. So it doesn't only happen with Carlow, it happens with the big teams too. So that's just my opinion on the thing.
Okay. Joe, you were up there last year. You saw it in the flesh. You know, talk to us about the the venue, like, and maybe the result and kind of what it means or whatever.
Yeah, well, sure. Look, we talked about the venue in the preview maybe last week in terms of the lads, and especially I think yesterday with the conditions, given the wind and, you know, the terrible conditions. If you know your pitch and it's a quite a narrow, short, you know, it's not a right ideal hurling venue, but if you know your pitch, and I know I said it before, like, lads might say it's the pitch, but it's no more than James there. If he was down in the club pitch and he'd know his range on the pitch, he'd know what way the wind to take a ball. You know the little things, you know what I mean? And on a day like that where it's tight and the conditions are very bad, it makes a difference. Yeah, I'd agree with what James is saying there in terms of rebuilding. I mean, even from last year, say, go back maybe 3 years ago. Even you've lost James Doyle isn't there currently at the minute. Alfie we mentioned is gone from gone in 3 years, if you get me. He's gone. Even taken last year, Ger Cody, Aaron Hammond, a couple of the walls, etc. So there's a lot of change there. You know what I mean? But the lads have brought in. Yesterday there, and I would say take three of their new faces, and one of them quite new, as I say, in Sean Murphy. But Scott Tracy, Conor Keogh, and Sean, if we class them as new for Tommy and Christie's time, or their managerial time, they contributed 5 points. Do you know what I mean? So they chipped in, and we mentioned their Fiacre as well, been blended in. Jack McCullough starting, Connor Lawler. So there's a lot of big changes there in the course of a year. I think the match itself was probably unusual, and I'd nearly have to go and ask Leo McGough for this, but I'd say it's the first time. I think I'm right looking at it there that both Chris and Marty were held scoreless from play. As far as I'm aware of, anyway. I think yesterday, and I don't remember an occasion like that happening. And I think that probably goes to show you how tight the battle was up there. Because you've probably two of the classiest forwards on any pitch in the National League yesterday playing there, and that they were held. Shows you the battle that Carlo obviously got. I heard kind of from both sides that they were impressed with Carlo's physicality, in terms of Carlo weren't bullied or anything up there yesterday. It was just that they were outmaneuvered near the end. Obviously Sean, after clipping over 3 points, like, he's a very direct runner. He's when he's on his game, he's just unmarkable, as we know from football and obviously from hurling as well. And obviously losing him to a red card, late in the second half, and when the snip and tuck, is going to hamper your chances as well. But they'll be disappointed. I think they'll be. Look, they're obviously going up there expecting a massive battle. You never go up there otherwise, and it's going to be tight, and with conditions as well. I know you can't change the match, but you bring that match to excuse me, to neutral venue or Dr. Cullen, and on lovely dry sod and a bigger open pitch, you'd be probably fancying our chances a little bit more. And down do. I mean, look, you take any advantage you can get. That's the way. Like, there's no, like, they'll say to you, like, well, Jesus, our club hurling, we've to, we're traveling from the ends of down to wherever to get good club hurling challenges or county challenges. Like, they'll take any advantage that they can when you're going up there. They're not going to make it easy for you. Do you know what I mean? And that's what you expect. They're not going to roll over and let you come beat them in their own pitch. But yeah, look, it was probably one that they targeted to win, because obviously, like, look, let's be honest, like, next week's one now takes on a bit, takes on more meaning. You have Westmeath at home at the weekend, and that's a big game. Westmeath had a 6-point win over Kerry, but obviously Kerry were down to Kilmiley lads, and Westmeath have a few injuries as well. But obviously Carlo were hoping to get a bounce out probably last weekend, and coming into the Westmeath game then a little bit of a high, you know what I mean? And I think it was Marty picked up a bit of a knock yesterday. We didn't go off at him, but I think he got a heavy bang in the first half, and he'd be hoping that obviously for tomorrow, we'll be talking about the Fitzgibbon, that I think he'd be okay for that as well. But he'll have just picking him as one player in particular, he'll have 2 big games, 2 heavy games in the week, and then to have another one on Sunday. And obviously Chris is playing as well. So there's a lot of things to happen. I think one player we mentioned as well that we didn't have yesterday. I know we can't talk about who we didn't have, but I think he's a big part. He was very impressive in a lot of games for us last year, and obviously at club level as well, was John Nolan. And John being out with an injury, he's a big loss. He makes a lot of things happen, in around that forward line as well. And he would have been a big loss yesterday. His work rate last year in some of the games was just tremendous as well. And it was just unfortunate going up to down again, just down that 1 or 2 players that maybe might have made a difference in a tight game like that. But look, what can you do? You have to, I suppose this year in one way, we're in a better position because of the Keogh Cup. We have blooded lads, and Tommy and Christy and Pat Murphy and the coaches would have had a chance to look at lads in more detail, whereas maybe last year we didn't have that opportunity to look at lads. But it just makes things a little bit tighter. I suppose, the semi-final this year, there's a semi-final in the division, so it does give you that little bit of breathing space in terms of that it's not the top two in the final as far as I'm aware, that there's a semi-final in the division this year. So at least it gives you, you're not completely chasing your tail from now on in,
So like a late goal was the winning of a 4-down. Carlow were 2 points up, like in the closing stages. So that's kind of where we're at. But let's deviate slightly to I suppose Tom Lally and Christy Keeley, because they won All Ireland with Naas on Saturday. And so James, like you were remarking on the record that Tom has, in fairness. So maybe you'll elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure. It was brilliant, the one, weren't it? And it was very interesting because 10 years ago, Friday coming the 11th, he won it with us, the 10th anniversary. So it was just brilliant, I was thrilled for Tommy, and everybody here was. He's just a phenomenal person, he'll help out any way he can with everyone. But he's won the All Ireland Junior with Glenmore. He's been in the All Ireland Intermediate with us, and now he's won it with Naas. He had a hand in Clara, and he's obviously been in the All Ireland Senior final with us. So he's graced it as a manager in Junior, Intermediate, and Senior, which is phenomenal record. He was involved with Clara in winning seniors in Kilkenny, Shelmaliers, and Wexford. Anything he touches turns to gold, and there's no airs or graces about him. He's just such a common person, and Christy and himself, I was listening to Frank last week saying they're chalk and cheese, but they're just, you can't believe how good they are together, and they deserve great credit for what they've done, they live and die hurling, and it's 7 days a week, and he won an All Ireland Intermediate Saturday night, and in Croke Park, he was in Ballycran yesterday with the boys, and he's just I couldn't put into words. I've said it a lot, but you just can't describe. He makes, I think, and I've said this to you before, Kevin. He actually, when he came to us, we were probably a bit wild and all that crack. He actually makes you a better person off the field as well as on the field, because he makes you carry yourself that way. He's just, and there's no big shout, no big dramas. He just gets on with it. And Joe, I said last year when you were there, it'll probably be the best year of your life working with him. You learn so much the way he carries himself, the way he goes on, and just a real humble person. And I was reading an article yesterday. I was watching the match Saturday night, and it says he was emotional and trying to choke back the tears, and you don't see that side of Tommy often, and he holds that line, and that'll tell you what that meant to him, for a person that was, after being there, done that, won junior, was in the senior, just with Naas. And an interesting one, when we won that All Ireland Intermediate final, the scoreline was 113 to 111, 16 plus 14. The scoreboard, or the score the other night, was 16 versus 111, 16 plus 14. It'll just tell you the way the gods work. And they held out well. The last 20 minutes, there was a swirling wind in it. It seemed from the TV, there was a swirling wind in it. They were under pressure. But the one thing about Tommy's teams is they'll always dig deep. And, it was brilliant to see him there after the match, and, he means so much to all of us down here, after he's gone a few years now, but he was with us for 10 years. And if he rang us tonight and says to us, I want you on top of the Black Stairs at 6 o'clock in the morning, I guarantee you one thing, you'd have every one of the 30 boys that was there before with him.
So well done to the two boys. Now, James, there is one question that we've been sent in, right? So it's, do you think a senior county manager should be allowed to manage a club team at the same time? The person that's got in touch has said that he feels that Carlow hurlers are maybe neglected because of an involvement with a club side at the same time, and that results are proof of it. No, is that fair? Where do you stand on that?
No, I wouldn't think that's fair. I disagree with that now. And I can understand the question. Don't get me wrong. I think that if I'm being honest, right, I think there's managers that coach two teams and they're in it for the money, right? I'll be genuine about it. One thing about Tommy gives 100%. Tommy's a 7-day-a-week man. The Naas thing ran over into an All Ireland final. If Naas hadn't won Kildare, Tommy would be free 5 months ago, and to be nothing about it. Do you know what I mean? But look, they went on a run. I don't think if you talk to any of them Carlow hurlers, players especially, and ask them do they feel neglected, I know what their answer will be. He's never off the phone to him. He's 100%. Like, and I know you might say 100%. If Tommy's training Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, Tommy's there Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. Outside of that, Tommy's on the phone to them lads, getting them right, getting their heads right. Like, he's a 24/7 man when it comes to GA. Like, he was with us. He was with us for 10 years, and he was training other teams. He was with Rathnewer and Wexford. He was with Clara. He was with Shell McLears. Like, absolutely not. It had no effect on us. Tommy, if you knew the person, and I can understand the text, but if you knew the person, you'd know that the answer to that would be no. But in certain cases with other managers, yeah, I think that's a bit of a wishy-washy one. That depends on the person and what their motivation is. But Tommy's motivation is hurling and hurling only.
Yeah, I suppose that the concern may be just, I know, like you've said previously, on many occasions, they've been with a couple of teams at the same time. Is it difficult, or is it more difficult then when there's a county team involved? Does that require more energy, more focus? Is that a bit more taxing? And can you give 110% to both? Like,
yeah, I think he can, because I think an inter-county manager will surround himself with the right people. Knows that you can't really do at club level, if you get me. Like, you can bring in like you look at Ballygunner, say, for instance, right? Ballygunner have a backroom team. Annie was watching the Munster Club hurling final. The captain was thanking him for about 10 minutes. The night they played Rangers, 4 statsmen, 1 in each corner of the field. Some clubs will be lucky to have 1. They're at an inter-county standard. At an inter-county level, like, you look at Dublin when they're winning All-Irelands, Kilkenny, you see the pictures afterwards, the backroom team, there's 25 in it. Like, there's 25 in it. Like, Christy Healy would take an awful lot of the workload as well. Joe, you'd know this from being involved. Like, Tommy, I'm sure last year with you, didn't let you walk into training and, well, lads, how's it going? And walk out after training. Like, you have specific jobs too. And that's the way Tommy does it. He delegates. Like, when Tommy was over us, there was always the second man with Tommy, and the second man was training the team. And when Tommy needed to step in, he stepped in. But when Tommy stepped in, you knew that things were off. And things rose back up fairly quickly. But no, again, I understand the question. It's a fair question. But again, if you knew the person and you had worked with the person the way that I was lucky enough to work with him for 10 years, you'd understand, because he was involved with other teams too. But there's a lot of managers now double jobbing, because the way the season works,
split, like, yeah,
it allows him to do that. And as I said, if Naas had been beaten in a county final or even a Leinster final, that question mightn't have come in. But a good question, whoever sent it in there.
Yeah. So then it brings us to what happened, or what's allegedly has happened on the field of play. So I'm just going to dig out the article that RT have up. So obviously Ronan Sheehan, the Down senior hurling manager, alleged that players were subjected to sectarian abuse during the game. And I think Brits was one of the words allegedly used. Carlow GA were contacted. Jim Bulger, the chairperson, spoke on their behalf and issued a statement by saying Carlow GA are committed to upholding the principles of anti-sectarianism and anti-racism, and all related reports, allegations are investigated and action taken as appropriate. That's what Jim Bulger said, as quoted in RT's article online. So, like, where do you sit on this, James? And I know I appreciate it is a delicate issue, but it's in national news, so like let's talk about it. From your experience going up there, is this something you've come across before? And I suppose it's not great to be in the headlines for this sort of thing. Where do you see it?
Look, we played, and it's interesting when somebody said to me today about the bad result, and I had to explain to him that if the 2E were picking the best Carlow team over the last 10 years that came, it was probably the team that won the Joe McDonagh and the Christy Ring back to back. If you go back then a little bit farther and say what was the best team before that, you'd probably go back to our team that won Christy Ring back to back 8 and 9. We went to Newry in 2008 under Jim Green and the hockey dust, and we bounced back to win the Christy Ring. 2009, then we had to win the Christy Ring back to back. Who did we meet in the final? Down, and Robbie Foley got that last minute goal. Like, and like them 2 games, like you got bet to him, then you end up winning it. You didn't meet him again, and the following year you beat him in the final with a last minute goal. So that'll tell you how tight it is over the last 12, 13 years with Carlow and Down. Yeah, went up there often, and yeah, it's a tough place to go. To bring you to Ballycran, you touched on it earlier. They play the percentage as well. If you were a team coming down in Carlow, and the next thing you ended up, as I was telling the wife this evening, having the dinner, like it'd be the very same as going up the back road here for maybe an hour, and you know the next thing you arrive at Hurling. But they carried themselves well, like, and our club was up there a few years ago. They went up. They were invited up to a tournament, but. Like it's such a fine line. You say one thing in the heat of the moment, and the next thing, bang. And with the way social media is now, like I wasn't at the match. I don't know what was said. I read a few things today about it, and like social media will drive this. You have all the lads commenting. You have lads making up fake profiles today because when you click on them and see them, they have no followers, and nobody's following them, so they're just adding in the comment to stir the pot a bit. But like you can just say one thing, one word can come out of your mouth and you can just spark something. But like it's a tough place to go. I always found them tough. You might have one, you know, gone being like I'm sure I often said stuff up there too. I can't remember now, but I'm sure I often said stuff, and if you were to look back on it now, you'd say, Jesus, I was lucky there or something. But in the heat of the moment, these things happen. But I'm sure if something was said, it was said in the heat of the moment. I think the Down Hurling team, to be fair to them, someone might have said something back or something, who knows. But I think social media will flare this off. Like, I'll give you an example, right? A good example. And you've asked me an honest question. I've seen where Colin Marouk said today about, you touched on it earlier in the other thing about sending off all the players. And the next thing it turns to the meat team of the 19s. And Ewan McKenna tweeted there, and the next thing Ross Carr from Down, and they're on about Mickey Linden's teeth, and they're on about the abuse and all this, adding fuel to the fire. And like, if you were to focus on Down's great win yesterday, we call it a great win, you know, beating Carlow, because, you know, that'd be a big one for them, to be fair to them. And they're making huge strides, and they're never too far away. And it takes the gloss off a little bit. Like, Tommy didn't come in and say, you know, I'm sure somebody said something to Tommy yesterday, probably that was said to them, but, you know, there's timing, and yeah, it shouldn't go on. We know that, but in the heat of the moment, like, you look at Philly McMahon, he said, like, the amount of time he sledged. You look at Tyrone players that say they crossed the line to get to do anything. Like when you see lads on television, when you're sitting down on a Sunday and there's a lad whispering in a lad's ear, he's not asking him what he had for breakfast. You know, he's saying something to him, and it's not nice, and that's just the way it is sometimes, and it's disappointing today, but like, you know, it'll be something else tomorrow.
Can I just balance this in some way, right? Because it's not necessarily the two counties involved, but I know I've heard it before from people that have played senior hurling with Carlow that have gone up north, and the sectarian abuse has actually come the other way as well. I'm not saying that happened yesterday, by no means, but someone that has played with Carlow at senior level up north in a game has been on the receiving end of it from the other side as well. So yeah. I think it's only right and fair to maybe say that this is not, you know, the way it's been painted at the moment. I think it's a little bit unfair that people think maybe if it is true that it's just a Carlow thing. It has happened the other way. And I'm not saying that's right either. There's none of it is right, but let's put a bit of balance and perspective into it and be fair.
Throughout my career, a fierce lot of people knew my mother for some reason, but that's just the way it goes, you know. And
sorry for laughing now, but like, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? I was saying this to somebody today as well. You could go to play a match 200 miles away, and the next thing somebody would say, "Oh God, yeah." But you know, like this thing, and I'm not playing down now what was reported or whatever, but I'm just saying we're hearing one side. It's allegedly, you know, it's subjective. It's subjective at the moment because we haven't heard anything from the other side. But I can tell you this, hand on my heart. Jim Bulger was chairman of the Leinster Council, and Jim Bulger is a fine representative of Carlow GA. And Tommy Mullally is a very respectful manager, very, very respectful manager. And by no way would they encourage or, they would totally condone that. That'd be out of their remit altogether. Like, even at club level with Tommy, if you said something wrong, like he would pull you one side after the match and say, if I ever hear you saying that again, you won't play. I've seen him doing it. And that'll just tell you. So look, it is what it is. Unfortunately, it happened, and I'm not brushing over it either, but I'm just saying, like, we're hearing one side, and I've read something today there where somebody said that the Carlow players were abused consistently throughout the hour. But unfortunately, the manager made the statement after the match. If it happened, it happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but what I'm saying is that just blew it all up. And look, nobody probably said to Tommy didn't go into the dressing room and call out someone and say, look, here's what happened, or he didn't tweet about it either himself, because, he could have done it a different way. He could have went through his own county board. He'd done it himself on his own social media page. And look, it's disappointing. If it did happen, it's disappointing, but it's very subjective at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, all I can say from the left wing back's point of view is I've the utmost respect for hurling up north and hurling everywhere. And I don't like hearing all this stuff going on, be it for whatever reason. So
it creates division as well, Kevin. And, you don't want that, and just on that, like, I think James hit a very good point there, and I 100% back him, what he said there in terms of Jim Bulger and Tom Mullally, in terms of two men of integrity there, in terms of, like, I know you can, as I say, you can debate about this, that, and the other, or team selections with managers or whoever, and any stuff like that. But there's one thing from working with Tom for the year, and I've seen it straight up, is that, that stuff that's not, nothing like that is, tolerated. And I know with Jim Bulger as well. And I think, look, it has to be investigated. It's unusual the stuff wasn't reported, during the match, because it's kind of a case then of he said, she said sort of thing. But look, I think you have to let the investigation or whatever will happen, let it happen, and give give both sides a bit of space at it. I don't think, no one condones anything like that, and you don't want to drive wedges between, as much as you're there to get a win or it's hurling, but at the end of the day, you don't want to create division, and especially sometimes between, I won't call it our smaller counties, but us, the counties down, who are kind of struggling for a bit of recognition and trying to get the edges and all. We don't need to be fighting and getting into bother with each other. But look, I think ultimately, like I said, I think you have to give it a bit of space. I think the less we talk about it, really, the better. I know we had to acknowledge it probably this evening, but I think probably, in fairness to Tom and Jim and whoever else is involved in looking into it, do you know what I mean? Let them give them their space, and if something comes of it, it comes of it. But it's
we were
probably,
absolutely acknowledging it, because we're not going to sit here and say we're honest and balanced and everything, and then ignore something that's in national news. So
no, but but I'm saying to you, in terms of, you have to give them space from now on. And I think, by the way, I think as well, I think I'd agree with James, and this is, again, aside from whether something happened or didn't happen on both sides or one side. But I don't think, like, there's a way about doing things, and you hit the nail on the head there, James. I was looking up a result for the match yesterday. Next thing I see, the down manager comes in and tweets underneath the official score and sticks this out. You go through the channels, whether it was said or not said or whatever, but you go through the right channels and do it properly. You know what I mean? In terms of the way it was done is not the way to do it. But I think, in fairness to Carlo, the lads, Jim and whoever else, will be dignified and do it the right way. And whatever happens out, it happens out. If something is proven and some lad has to take it on the chin, to take it on the chin. If nothing is proven, well, then we move on, and that's it done and dusted. You know what I mean?
Can I just end the point by saying that, personally, I think Jim Bulger's doing a great job. I think he's a brilliant chairman. So approachable. I've had many dealings with him over the past 6 months, and very straight, very honest. Gives everyone a fair crack and has time for everyone. And an
interest.
Jared Doyle as well has been very good as PRO, and he's got up to speed with a lot of things very quickly. Like, even from the social media point of view, he's he's in tune with that. I'm not quite sure he knew much about this podcast 12 months ago, but he's a regular listener and viewer now as well. So, and like Mike Whelan, I'd know an awful long time. So, I think, the leadership comes obviously from the top, and Jim is very experienced from an administration point of view and very approachable. And I think that's all you can ask for in a leader. And just
and our county board, Kevin, to always remind people, you're probably, James mentioned there about, you'd be looking at different jokes and hearing different things, and no matter what goes wrong, it's always the county board. But the county board are our clubs. Ultimately they're not removed from our clubs. They're actually our clubs in terms of the people who are there and all. And
it gets generalized way too much as well.
Way too much, and it's just crazy. And they do look at the work and the time and the commitment they put into it, and you mentioned all those people, and fair play to them. So
just to come in on that, Joe, and you're 100% right. Like, I'd see firsthand now, my own young lad is in with the calls there, and I'd see firsthand the work is going on, the meetings that's set up with all the parents online, the information they're getting on a weekly basis. Like, it's and I know you'll touch on it later because the next man coming in is actually involved with my son. But the Carlow County, we're on the hurling one now, and I think the supporters of Carlow need to be patient with this hurling team. I think that they will bear fruit in the end. I think that there's a complete transition. Like, I named out 5 forwards there that won a Joe McDonough that weren't there yesterday. And no team can sustain that, especially not in Carlow. And Joe said it, the injuries, like Kieran Whelan's not in there. Like, you could list off another 10, right? But what they're doing is they're working with what they have for one reason or another. They're not there through injuries, etc. And bear with them. It's a long time. Like Colin Bonner was lucky; he got a great squad. Inherited a great squad. That squad would be disappointed. I guarantee if you asked him, Daydaugh and Christy Ring, that's the target. Daydaugh, Joe McDonough, that's the target, because they looked around the dressing room, leaders everywhere. To be fair to this group, you have Conor Lawler, Sean Murphy, Scott Tracy, Fikra Fitzpatrick, Conor Keogh. It's a whole new team, really. 8 missing, and you look at the bench. It's a new bench as well. I know some of the older brigade are coming back in, but over the next 2-3 years, there's going to be a huge transition there. But stick with him, because
be patient.
Be patient.
2 o'clock Sunday, now at Cullen Park, Carlow versus Westmeath. So that'll be tasty. Now, just before we bring in Nicholas Redmond, just to mention Michael as well, and hard luck to them. They were in the Leinster Intermediate Camogie final against St. Rina's, and Rina's just proven too strong on the day. So, I want to give that a mention. We had Bridge on last week, and she spoke very, very well. Yeah. And just hard luck to them. A fine Rina side that you know all about, Joe. But I'm gonna bring in a very interesting character. Nicholas Redmond, welcome to the left wing back. How are you keeping?
How are you, Nicholas?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Sorry for keeping you waiting. We kind of got caught with time and different things are caught up in time. But you're ever so patient. So thanks for hanging on and coming on with us. So a very interesting story. We'd like to hear all about it. So you're Canadian, and then you developed this grow for hurling. Tell me how that happened and what brought you over to play Fitzgibbon Cup hurling.
As the story goes, Canadian. So I would have been playing our national sport of ice hockey for a really, really long time. And I'd say maybe back in 2010, when I was maybe, bad with dates here, but I'd say when I was around 13, 14, there was an Irish teacher that came over to my secondary school, and she would have introduced the sport to me, but I was so focused on ice hockey back then that I never got a chance to try it. And then I would say about 3-4 years ago in 2019, late 2018, early 2019, I was kind of ending my ice hockey career, and I was at a college back home, and I knew that's where it was. That was my moment to try it. So I gave it a go, fell in love with it from the get go, and now a couple of years later, I'm here, and just lucky and happy to be here and enjoying it. So it's been a crazy couple of years, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose in the last week or two, your story has made national headlines. You spoke about, I suppose, is it fair to say a borderline obsession with the game, in that you sit down on YouTube and just will watch any game from any era, and you kind of are retaining a lot of knowledge from that as well.
Yeah, definitely. definitely in the early stages. A bit less now that I'm here. I don't have to be online as much. I can go in person. But definitely I would have been on YouTube trying to get as much as I can on GA Go to watch as many games as I can learn. And now I'm here. So definitely, yeah, just a lot of time. There's not too many people to puck around with them, so definitely a lot of time at the wall, and that's it. Yeah.
And as James was saying there, you're involved with the Carlow Colts, so you're actually coaching underage county sides, which is quite a big thing. In fairness, like for a man coming over from Canada or whatever. And how's that experience going?
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm part of a magnificent team with the likes of Brendan Hayden, Mark Aries, and Kieran Balger there as well. So good lads to take me under their wing and teach me how to do it. But then again, I would have been coaching a bit with my club back home as part of the senior coach and one of the youth coaches as well. So I'd have a bit of experience myself and just a lot of coaching with ice hockey. So yeah, it's going well. They're a good bunch of lads. We're teaching them the basics of SNC and getting a bit of hurling involved now. So it'll be exciting to see where they already just seeing some development from where they started and where they're at. So I'm excited to see how we progress them the rest of the way here.
And Fitzgibbon Cup stuff. Then what's the crack there? Like obviously it's a serious standard, and ID Carlow have been involved in some serious games over the last few weeks.
Serious games, yeah. It's some closer than we'd like, but obviously we've got a big one tomorrow. That's where I was at previously. We had a nice big meeting and training. That's about all I'll say of that, because you never know who's listening. So, but yeah, definitely serious standard of hurling, some serious hurlers on the panel. A lot of guys to learn from and to watch and try and emulate and mimic. So. Yeah, serious one tomorrow, and that's where the focus is right now. So just take it one day for now.
Yeah. Joe wants to know what your thoughts are on social hurling, real hurling. He said not to mind that Fitzgibbon Cup crack. Social hurling is where it's at on a Friday night.
I thought Joe was going to ask him where he got the hair done as well.
Right, I'd be working over at the college myself, so... Yeah, I would have seen some social hurling there, some serious hurlers there. Maybe might be around my standard. Maybe somewhere I could dominate and get the confidence up when the Fitz lads are done with me. But
some serious bellies there, anyway. I can tell you that.
It's cool. I definitely yeah. Yeah, no, they got some nice jerseys. I'll give them that. I'll give them that. They got some nice jerseys.
Yeah, good stuff. And James, do you want to jump in there and ask a question or two, because I know you're looking very tentatively there.
Yeah, how are you finding it all with the calls? What do you make of that? Like, I know it's fairly full on there with so many kids there Friday nights and that. How are you finding all that with the youth? Like, are you enjoying that part of it? Is that something you enjoy there with the young lads?
Yeah. Coaching. If my sports never worked out, I had always kind of planned to go into coaching, firstly with ice hockey, but now obviously with hurling, taking the GA course myself. But yeah, it's there. Like I said, there's a good group of lads there that want to develop and get better, and they still know how to have a bit of fun. And they're 14, so there's some lads that are definitely gonna mess around a bit. But no, I'm enjoying it. It's a good experience to see. The seriousness over here, not that it's not back home, but obviously we might have the resources or the facilities for it. So it's nice to see how things are done over here and the professionalism brought to the county side of things, all the way from 14 all the way up to the seniors. So it's been a big eye-opener and learning experience, and things I'd like to take with me wherever I end up in the future. So.
And just to finish up on that, then, where are you hoping the future takes you with the game? Like, obviously, are you heading back and maybe looking to develop things further at home, or are you kind of knocking around here for the foreseeable? What's the thought process there?
there's a few things in play there, but for the let's see, for the foreseeable future, oof, got me looking at the big times now. I'd say obviously it's just on the fits right now, and then I'm just sure at the college, so I have a few more years here as well, and I'd like to try and become even bigger impact on the panel as I get older in the college and move up through the years. That's kind of the close future, and then after that, I'd like to kind of go back home, get ready for what we have the next World Games, and which is kind of all the countries get their best players together and play against each other, and then as well as learn back to my home country of Canada, and if not, help to get the game grow out of Ireland, everywhere, wherever I end up, wherever that is. Obviously, Canada would be nice, but they've done a lot for me, so I like to give back to them. But wherever I end up is where I'll bring all my knowledge with me. So we'll just have to wait and see for that,
Good stuff. Well, listen, thanks a million for joining us here on the Left Wing Back Show on the hurling side of things. We'll be looking at your progress very, very closely, and a pleasure to chat to you. All right.
Yeah, well done, Nicholas.
Well done, Nicholas. Yeah, top man.
Best of luck tomorrow night.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll be in support. Yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks a million, Nicholas Redmond. Great story, lads. Really, it's phenomenal, isn't it? Like, it's so rare. Just we are kind of. I'm just conscious of time, lads. But Joe, schools hurling. What happened the last week? I believe there was a good result or two there. CBS direction, a certain messiah of a coach involved with one of those teams as well.
Philly Kehoe. Not me anyway.
It was Mickey-O. I heard it was Mickey-O.
No. Philly with the Lachlan connection there. Philly was the man, in fairness to him. Just to mention,
she'd have to win then.
That's that. Yeah, no, big mention. Great game. We mentioned there the Pres Gael Colossia winning their Leinster C1, so we won the Shield version of it. Beat Tullow, which was great to see two Carlow schools, and it was a cracking game, 313 to 310 in Dr. Cullen. Good big crowd in it last Friday. Right bit of biting it, really good hurling, great scores. On both sides. Dylan Townsend banging over scores for sport for Tullow, a nice hurler from Burn Rangers. They'll be hurling with their juniors this year. I think he's first year up. And then we had Jamie Ayres, Mark's son, who was involved with Michael Camogie there. He got 3-5 for us as well, which was unbelievable on the day. So it was a really good standard hurling, and meant a lot to both teams. It was great. It was brilliant. It was just a nice little finish for some of those lads, their last kind of game in school. So it was nice for them to go in a little bit of a high that way. So and just I mentioned the Camogie there as well. Just when you're mentioning about school, it was actually one of my old ex-students there that did a lot of the damage against Michael, unfortunately, at the weekend, and Siobhan Flannery. She was just unmarkable, but I mean, I would have seen that at 13 years of age when we had her in first year in school. She was just unbelievable, and as good as she is, I know I'm going to say this, as good as she is as a camogie player, she's equally as good, if not better, at soccer and Gaelic football. So she's a very talented young lady. But Michael gave her everything. Just the goals were a killer. Just every time they tried to get back into the game, just got suckered with another one. So, but look, the flight of flag fares well for Carlow, and the girls will be, they'll be back and looking to go again next year.
Mm-hmm. James, anything to say before we finish up?
No, just on the schools thing there, yeah, you'd often see, like, and I just say, like, you look at Colossia on above and Hackestown there to more, like, and they're constantly knocking on the door there for football finals. Yeah. And then you see what happened last week with the hurling, like, and you'd see it too, like, you see Burn Rangers winning the under 15 this year, like, Carlow Town in the minor A hurling final, like, and like that's brilliant to see. Like, you'd see it there. I'd be knocking around with young lads there, and I'd see like Carlow Town there to be a couple of lads putting in super work with them the whole time, and you'd be just hoping that like it stays going, because it's brilliant to see. Like, Rangers we were blessed. We came over the last 3 years with, especially this year's minor team was just a great crop, and it was just one of those things. They're after growing in Kilkenny over the last number of years, and that little bit just made him such a great team. But like, you look at Carlow Town there, like I watched Carlow Town playing our minors over in the field one evening, like, and it was a cracking game now. And I know our lads ended up winning well, but they were a good hurling team, then you watch the under 15, like they bet us in the under 15 final, like, and Burn Rangers, like, and you see what's going on over there. I went over there this year during the summer, last year during the summer there one night, and like the bet our under 13 team bet them well, and like they're getting better and better the whole time. So it's great to see what's coming through the schools and how it's progressing back into the clubs, and fair play to everybody that's doing the great work there, you know.
Good stuff. Joe Nolan, James Hickey, pleasure as always. Thanks for joining us on the Hurling Show on the Left Wing Back, Ollie.
Thanks,
God
Kevin.
bless. See you,
Thanks,
Joe.
man.
Yes, Kev. Bye-bye.
Thanks a million. There we go. So, look, we thank our sponsors, Solar Signs in Baidestown. Number one for your signage, garment printing and embroidery. You can visit solarsigns.ie. They're available there on Facebook and on Instagram as well. And again, if you are looking on Facebook, we have the Buy Me a Coffee link up. That's not compulsory by any means whatsoever. As you said last week, we put the content out for free. It's our intention to always do so. But if you do like what we do and want to show your support, you can do so for the price of a coffee. And a good few people actually bought us a coffee last week. Joe was burnt out with lattes last week. So on a serious note, thanks a million. Appreciate the support. As I said, absolutely no obligation to do so. Just out there. And if you want to support, we do appreciate it. But happy to put the content out. And even if it does mean pulling our hair out occasionally, and that's why we're looking for a stylist for a few of us over the next few weeks. But listen, thanks for tuning in. We're back again next Monday at 9 o'clock. We'll have plenty more to go through, and don't forget, you can of course get in touch with us. We're on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube live here at the moment. We're also on Instagram. You can email us at leftwingbackpodcast@gmail.com. That's where we leave it. Until next time, I suppose, mind yourselves and take care.